From Ticker, this is Brand Builders with Trevor Young.
Welcome to the show. My name is Trevor Young. Great to have your company. Now, what is it with CEOs and business leaders and their aversion to being out loud and proud on social media? I don't get it. Key of communications is leadership. Leadership is communications. And what is social media if it's not communication? I read two interesting stats in Forbes yesterday. 82% of buyers are more willing to place trust in a company when the C-suite is active on social media. And the second one is if a CEO uses social media, a whopping 77% of buyers are more likely to make a purchase. Okay, the rant's over. When I do see a CEO who's using social media creatively, it really catches my eye because, well, it's a rare occurrence. Case in point.
Yo, VIP, let's kick it. Vanilla slice, slice, baby. Vanilla slice, slice, baby. All right, stop. Isolate and listen. Steve is back on a brand new mission. Something baked sweet and lightly, baking day and every nightly. Will it ever stop? Yo, I don't know. We just got to wait for ScoMo. To the extreme, I want to bake a pie daily. And a vanilla slice, maybe custard with a pastry layer icing. Tastes like vanilla heavily. When you're in the mood, anything less doesn't pass as food. You all know that if you love a good cake, that Aussie classic can't be fake. And if you got a problem, yo, we'll bake it. Check out my knife while I cut your vanilla. Slice, slice, baby. Vanilla slice, slice, baby. Vanilla slice, slice.
Well, the man in the video is Steve Plarre, the CEO of Ferguson Plarre Bakehouses. Steve, were you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you, Trev. How are you?
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Still gives me a giggle.
Some very nice dance moves there. Tell us about the video series, because you've done about 8 or 9 of them now, and they're all on social media, and you run a pretty big business with how many stores have you got now? Franchise stores?
Yeah, we've got 80 retail outlets across Melbourne.
Alrighty, and so what's the feedback been like? This was the video that caught my eye, and then I checked out more on YouTube and Facebook particularly, and you got a few there. Corona Okie.
That's it. Yeah, look, I mean, when the whole crisis started, we very quickly moved to, well, what happened if we were going to be closed and if we couldn't supply our cakes? And at a core level as a brand, we deliver happiness to people through food. It just happens to be bakery items. Sort of nothing we sell is desperately in need other than maybe emotionally. And we thought, well, how could we make sure that if that happens, we could make sure that we continue to deliver some happiness? And we quickly moved to, well, look, what have we got in the business? The business knows that I did a bit of music in my career. I don't mind having a dance and a sing, and I've done a couple of these funny little things for our gala awards. And we thought, well, look, let's get into it. My family's very cheesy. We love a good food pun. So my daughters and I started doing a couple of little sort of 15-second snippets in the study right here, using a couple of little Apple tools. And we started with things like another one bites the crust, and girls just want to have buns for Easter, that kind of stuff. And people really liked it. And we're a family business. We've made peace with, not made peace. We've decided we really need to. We could do a much better job of letting people know that we might have 80 stores, but we're still a family business at heart. And also we've had to cut the marketing budget a bit. And so we're like, well, what free tools have we got? I'm in isolation at home, and we thought we'd test it out. Turns out it's been great. Kind of wish we'd been doing it for the last couple of years. And the marketing guys sort of tagged it, let's call it Corona Okie. Let's turn it into a bit of a competition where we invite customers in to suggest the kind of songs they'd like me to write lyrics to. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, there's no shortage of puns there. How long does it take you to do each one? Because, CEOs, despite working from home, CEOs and entrepreneurs and business owners, pretty busy people, and a lack of time is often an excuse for not getting involved in social media or creating content for that matter. How long does it take to do these videos?
So, look, first of all, look, this has been my sort of go-to creative thing for 20 or so years. It started in high school, rewriting the words to great songs with some funny jingles, and I used to write some of my own music. So that bit of it's kind of like, some people play golf and footy. Well, I play music. So the lyric writing stuff happens really quickly, sometimes just on the way to work, couple of funny words, catch up with my girls, my little 5-year-old and my 8-year-old, and they genuinely help out with a couple of funny ideas. The bit that really takes a long time, I've learned now that my wife's dusted off her media production skills, is cutting it all together and doing this visual bit. Really easy for me to hold up an iPhone and sing into it, which has still been quite good for engagement. But, sort of all the stuff with the lyrics down the bottom for karaoke and all that kind of stuff takes my wife, maybe a day to do a video like Vanilla Slice. Recording the video was just around the corner here in Port Melbourne, and that was about an hour of cutting things together because we'd sung it all together as a family for quite a while. But look, I think it's getting people who finding some skills that they really like using and have fun with, and we've got other people in the business whose skills are cracking jokes and humour, and we've put them to work with communicating with our franchisees and keeping mental well-being and happiness levels up, all kinds of things.
And I think that's the key, Steve, is that, in a lot of businesses you have got talent in the organisation, and it's just a matter of tapping it. People are passionate about all sorts of things. They could be doing, I've heard of some business owners, and they're staggered to find out that one of their employees is a blogger with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of readers, and it's just a matter of. I've always thought that social media and creating content for a company, it's a top down, but it's involving the whole organisation. You need the leaders involved, but also it works really well when it's part of the DNA of the organisation and everyone's pitching ideas in.
It is so true, and I tell you what, this whole crisis has forced people to, really scratch below the surface for the resources they have, because money's just totally run out for some businesses. It's certainly hurt, Ferguson, Plarre, but that's exactly right. Look, people in my business know that I don't mind showing off on a stage and doing some funny stuff, but forcing ourselves to know that our support managers for our franchisees can't be on the road as often as they'd like, or they're at home homeschooling. Some of their technical skills are just are superb, and particularly our baristas, who I think by nature have got to be very good at building rapport and having empathy with the people they're teaching, have just been such fantastic sort of mental check-ins. They're always cracking jokes, and so we engage them to help keep the humour levels up in the business. Receptionists and others who have really come to the fore and in some ways been the people that the whole business have looked to for a little bit of sunshine each day, because there are just so many dark clouds on the horizon at the moment. It couldn't be more true. That whole positive leadership thing about finding, looking at your people and looking at what do they do best, and it might not be what's in their PD right now, but who cares? All bets are off. Apologies for this phone going off. It's been very good for us, and I think a lot of the stuff that we've been doing right now is going to stick around. Yeah.
And I think a couple of points there, Steve. It's got to be on brand as well. You've got to know and understand your brand. Is key, and obviously you're all about fun, and as you say, put a little bit of sunshine into people's lives, and so you've got that. It's not about just putting stuff up for if you're potentially a very, very serious law firm, I'm not so sure doing Ice Ice Baby is going to add value to your brand. So it is all about what your brand, what your values are, and aligning with that. That's the key with creating content for social media.
It so is, and that's been a real test for us. I mean, when we spent the last couple of years really trying to work out, what is it that we really deliver our customers, and we're not in the bakery space, and we're not in the pie space. I sit and I watch our customers. We give them happiness. So for some of our older customers who've been around for a long time, we've been around for a long time. It's nostalgia. It's comfort. They might have lost their partners, and so they rock up and they might buy a coffee, but they're really looking for the fact that Todd from Craigieburn says, "Hi Janine, how you going? How's your sister?" That's what they're buying. And so, us understanding that there's a bit of that, and for some people they want to joke, some people don't want to think, or a lot of people don't want to think about the calories in a vanilla slice. We're not suggesting people should eat them every day, but when you are going to eat them, make sure the way that it got delivered heightens the experience of the vanilla slice or the pie. And it brings a little dose of sunshine. We talk about that little dose of sunshine a lot when we're talking to our service people. For every $1 that someone gives you, 50 cents is for the product. And we'll try and do a pretty good job of making that, but 50 cents is for the way they make you feel. And so that really translated to what are the things we think we're allowed to do on social media, and getting cheeky and having fun is good. You're crossing that line for our brand, being a family brand, and doing something a little bit edgy or rude or with swear words, that kind of stuff, that would not be right for us, but it could be right for other brands.
Yeah. So what's some tips you've got for other business owners and CEOs of taking that leap into social media and putting themselves out there a little bit, and whether it's having an opinion or just it's not necessarily always doing video, but it's having an opinion and sort of fronting the company they represent.
Absolutely. I think, even before the crisis, people were craving honesty and trust more than they ever had. I think post GFC and this whole fake news media thing that's been going on, or fake news, people just want to, I think, look in someone's eye and feel that they can trust them. And I think they would go for an unpolished, almost embarrassing execution that compared to some really polished one. And look, the timing's interesting because tonight at 6:30, 7 o'clock, we've got our next video going live, and it's pretty embarrassing. I'm in high heels and fishnet stockings, but it's. I think people want to see that you're just like them. And so whether you're in a bakery business or another business, just be honest. People are just craving it. The truth sets you free, I think, especially now. So it doesn't matter what business you're in. If you need to take guidance from your brand managers or your lawyers, do that first. Fair enough. We've had to check in on certain things. But just be honest. I think the capacity for people to be out there, and they don't have to be singing a song or doing karaoke or something like that, like I am. There are different versions of that. But connecting to customers, knowing who your customer is, knowing what your brand proposition is, and having the leader on social media talking straight to customer just gives the customer so much faith that if that's what's happening at the top, everything between that and the product or the service you deliver, there's a good chance that's going to be right. And I think that's the real win. And it can be you and it can be your team. In a couple of weeks, I've got a duet set up with one of my baristas who was an awesome singer and put together a suggested bunch of lyrics for a song. And we're going to do that together. And I think customers seeing leaders with their team members doing things together also speaks volumes about what's going on. So, yeah.
And family, because you involve your young daughter as well.
And family, yeah. It's I think there's nothing more honest than seeing your kids, genuinely either liking you or poking a bit of fun at you.
And Steve, it's interesting. You've mentioned a couple of times that that video we just saw was a little bit more polished and slick, but some of your earlier efforts aren't. And I think we've all, anyone who's been on social media for any amount of time, some of the early content is pretty ordinary, but you get better.
Yeah.
It's not about having a Hollywood production for social media. It's just about, it's mainly about having it real, making sure the content's good, we can see and hear things, but it can be a little bit rough around the edges, and sometimes that's the stuff that people gravitate to.
It's absolutely right. These phones we've got are just so wonderful. You can, sometimes I might do 20 takes and it might look like I've done one take and not a good take. But, you record them, you save them, you do it again, you get used to it, you finally get happy with it. I normally get 2 or 3 people to check it to make sure it's on brand and there's not a word or a suggestion in there that's not right. You can take your time with it. And yes, over the last couple of months, I've got a bit better at sort of getting the message right and the tone right. And in another year, I'll be better at it again. But I'm hoping we'll find some talent within the business and they can start singing and dancing and doing some of their stuff. But yeah, these devices, it's free. Apple Clips got those cool backgrounds that you can drop in there for a little bit of fun. Obviously, you know, everyone's seeing their Zoom backgrounds going on, but it's just iPhone based. It's really good, and for this kind of medium, the resolution and all that stuff's just fine. And a lot of the stuff that I've done doesn't involve a backing track. If anyone does want a backing track, I just use there's a little website called Karaoke UK. It's like $2 for a song. I make sure they give me permission. You know, if I had to use it in a radio ad, that would be different. But
Yes.
On Facebook as a competition background, it's been great. And it's easy. It's easy.
And what about when, you know, when you're just saying I mean, this has been obviously not enforced, but it's been, you know, the spark of creativity has come from isolation. But what about, you know, once we come out of the fog of COVID-19 and things get back to normal, how do you think you're going to start approaching things now, social media wise? Will it change the way you look at social media and the types of things you do and the types of videos? Because you know, behind the scenes videos, once you open up the door to video and you know, images and everything for social media, it's just a vista of opportunities for brands.
Yeah, you're so right. Look, we're new to it. People have been telling us for a long time, where's your video content? We've got a little bit of stuff online, but really it's been very sort of franchise-centric. I think lots of businesses have been forced to do some stuff they would have never have done before. One, it would have taken 4 different people to nod their heads to get through the bureaucracy, and then convince some other people to do it. And then, you know, sometimes the ideas die. You know, everyone's had to be so agile, and we've had to take the risk. And so for us, a couple of months ago, doing this kind of thing, you know, maybe my board would have said, hey, you've got better things to do with your time, mate. But, you know, get on and get going with some other strategy stuff. But in light of what we've got going on here and the capacity to just make sure that we were continuing a conversation with our customers throughout this crisis, because lots of them can't visit us like they used to before, we decided to get going with it. So this will be sticky for us. There will be other versions of us doing fun things on video. It's proven that we don't have to spend 10 grand on a big production. We can do some real stuff, and in fact, the real stuff's probably more valuable, like you said, than something super, super polished. Other aspects of that for us are, you know, we've got less people rocking up to the counter, but it's forced all of our stores to jump on Uber Eats. And some of our stores are driving 20% of their sales from that mechanic. Some of that will die down after the crisis, but some of it will stick, and there are so many versions of that going on. So, look, I can't wait to let loose on it. One of the other ideas, if we got to full lockdown, and we haven't, was obviously we're bakers. My brother's just a magnificent pastry cook, and he's got some really, you know, fun teenage girls at home who I just think would be fantastic in front of the camera. And so you can imagine, you know, Mike Plarre saying, hey, here's what I do when I'm at home. Here's, you know, everyone's got these ingredients in their pantry. Here's my favourite pie that, you know, you can't get at Ferguson Plarre, but it's a beef stroganoff or something, and having his kids do that. Decorated cakes have been obliterated. Of course, you know, no one can hang out in groups of more than their family or two. So, you know, our decorated cakes are down 70 to 80%. But I've got cake decorators who are just magnificent artists. And so, you know, we're busy trying to think about how do we put together a video that says, hey, look, if you've got either some plasticine for practice or some real icing at home, here's how you build a beautiful little unicorn for your next children's birthday. And then the latest thing, which we're doing this week, is gingerbread decorating kits, which are really just sort of sanity kits for mums and dads who are at home and just need to give their kids something crafty to do. But getting our decorators to decorate up 20 magnificent gingerbreads. Here's a Hulk and here's a Toy Story style one or whatever. Go get some Smarties and do your own decorating.
It's all about adding value, Steve. Now, the new video you mentioned earlier, I think I caught you. You're wearing high heels and stockings, so I'm sure there's. I'm sure you want to give us a hint on which band that is. Could be Queen. Could it be a certain song?
It is Mother's Day in a couple of weeks, and in honour of the fact that there are a lot of mums out there trying to break free, and Ferguson Plarre did serve the Queen in 1963. I'll leave you to join the dots. High heels are not my thing, I can assure you.
Well, we will look with interest. That's for the Ferguson Plarre Facebook page is where people should be following you and keeping an eye out for those videos. Yep,
that's it. I think about 7 o'clock tonight, they tell me.
Terrific. Thanks very much, Steve, for sharing that and for the dance moves.
No worries. Thanks, Trevor. Cheers.
Alrighty, but you're still here with us on Brand Builders. Now, we're going to be speaking in a tick with Yvonne Adele. Now, Yvonne is a marriage celebrant, a fashion designer, and owner of a speaking school, but she's probably best known as one of Australia's leading conference MCs and speakers. Welcome, Yvonne.
Every single one of these elements can be amplified by using the social selling tools like LinkedIn. Your own CEO, it's a global remit now that you need to spend 30% more time with customers. And when you first heard that, you were like, what? I'm going to take that off my sleep time, my family time. Where am I going to get this time? I'm telling you, you can actually do this online. Doesn't have to be face-to-face, this extra time that you spend with customers.
Welcome, Yvonne.
Hello, how you doing, Trev?
I'm very well, very well. Now, as we know, public speaking is a proven way to supercharge your personal brand, and you're the woman formerly known as Miss Megabyte. We might get into that in a minute, but you know, when it comes to public speaking, surveys show that one of our biggest fears is that public speaking is at the top of the list, and you always hear that thing that, you know, we fear public speaking or getting up and standing in front of a group and talking is greater than the fear of death. It still permeates.
Yes, that's right. And that's because people get in their head too much. They think it's all about them, you see. But I've got a few little handy tips to get out of your head and to banish all nerves when speaking. And then it's not... I can give you that.
Well, we'll get into those tips, but let's just give us a little bit of a background on yourself, because as I said at the outset, you're a marriage celebrant, which is reasonably new. You're a fashion designer, which is even new, but you've been speaking for how long, and where's the Miss Megabyte for the, shall I say, the older members of our audience might remember Miss Megabyte.
Like you, okay. So I was a tech head who was working at Microsoft in tech support because I absolutely loved and was passionate about helping people to love their technology instead of hate it, throw it out the window. So from that, I decided to start my own consultancy, helping people how to learn how to automate technology and streamline it to make it less annoying, I suppose. So I caught the attention of a couple of the daytime TV shows and ended up on the Today Show doing like a regular weekly segment on technology, what was coming and what was happening and how to use technology to your advantage. So, you know, my nickname was Megabytes. And so on the Today Show, they started calling me Miss Megabyte. And yeah, that's how that sort of name was born, I suppose. From Miss Megabyte then, and as I started appearing on TV, as you can imagine, the sort of domino effect is that you then start getting asked to speak at conferences. So that's how I discovered the world of speaking, and that was about 22 or 3 years ago. And eventually I left TV behind just for speaking.
Right, so Miss Megabyte, what would it be now? A zettabyte, wouldn't it?
I actually have no idea.
All right, let's go with gigabyte. That sounds better. So you've been speaking for about 22 years, and you've done it's keynote speaking as well as MC work, but you've also running a speaking school, and you do teach people how to get over nerves. And I think that's how often do you see this affliction take hold of people? You know, if you ran into 10 people, how many of them would want to speak in public?
One.
Yeah,
probably about one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know, as an MC, it's interesting because I'm the one that is standing with you in the wings just before I go out to introduce you to, you know, have you then go on stage. So I see this even more often now that I'm not just a keynote speaker who pops up, you know, 10 minutes before they talk and then leaves as soon as they're done, like your next guest, for example. So, you know, I see it much more often, and I've discovered my 3 sort of top tips for getting over these nerves. First, it involves understanding that the talk you're about to do is not about you. You are a vehicle for the message. So if you consider yourself as simply the vehicle for the message to go through, then you start to take a step back from worrying about what if they're concerned about what I look like, what if they don't like what I'm going to say, what if they don't believe what I'm going to say. The fact is that you have already earned the right to be there on that stage just by the fact that the person who chose you to be the speaker is the one, that gave you that right. So the people in the audience have already put their trust in the conference organizer, the speaker, the business. So you have already earned the right to be there. So certainly that worry should go out the window. And then if you consider that you are a vehicle for the message, and that simply you are serving a message to this audience who is already looking up to you as the expert in that area of expertise. And then you got to do those classic mindfulness techniques. Just take a breath. Remember your breathing. The amount of people I elbow in the ribs and go, hey, you're not breathing. And, remember your breathing. But I've got a great tip which I give to my brides and grooms and brides and grooms too when I'm as a celebrant, which works for speaking as well, is to wiggle your toes in your shoes. If you do it now, Trev, you wiggle your toes.
I'm wiggling.
All of a sudden, you come back to the present moment and you stop going away with the fairies and worrying about what if. You come back to the present moment. If you wiggle your toes in your shoes, it reminds you to start breathing. It brings you back to sort of being centered, I guess. And that's just a classic mindfulness technique, which works just before you're about to go on stage.
It's and I attest to the breathing. Before I go on stage, I take a really big breath, and I'm no different to anyone else. Where my background's public relations, and I guess I've been the person in the background for decades, and never taking the front stage. And then as you do more miles in business, and you get asked to speak at conferences, and that's okay. But then from blogging and being on social media and having a book and things like that, you do get asked to speak. And you either embrace it or you don't, and it can take you on a whole different course, can't it? I mean, if you're running a business, and particularly if there's a thought leadership element to your business and domain expertise, and demonstrating that expertise is an advantage and can give you an edge. Speaking can really help build your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's one thing to be an accidental speaker, just like that, where you fall into speaking and your content and your subject matter expertise relies on you to do the speaking that comes up as an opportunity. That's one thing. And if you are completely and utterly mortified and terrified of speaking in that instance where you've become an accidental speaker, then the other trick is to actually let the event know that you would like to be interviewed on stage by the MC or by perhaps another industry expert. And then all that interview is doing is just a conversation. And you can provide 5 to 10 questions that interviewer can use to draw the content out of you. And, that's a really easy way to just dip your toe into the water of speaking, because then you feel like you're up there with someone else just in conversation, and doing a keynote kind of flows on from that. But some people do often wonder, like, should they speak for free? Should they become a professional speaker and earn money for speaking? And really, as you say, it depends on your sort of business model. If you're speaking as a tool to funnel clients and prospective, say, readers for your book and your blog and all of that, if you're using it as a marketing tool, then absolutely you should be speaking for free at as many events as possible. But if the main part of your business model is that you are the expert of that area and you're known as the professional authority, then you would be a professional speaker earning money for that talk and not selling stuff afterwards.
And usually one will precede the other, isn't it? I mean, you've got to do the time, you've got to do your free talks,
Yep.
10, 20, 30, 40, I think I did 50 before I charged a fee. And
Yep.
it's small events too. I mean, I think we always think speaking and big audiences and everything, but sometimes, earning your chops at small meetups and things like that is a really terrific way to start. And it's about learning how to connect with an audience, isn't it?
That's exactly right, and it's sometimes people think, well, these are throwaway events, and I'll I'll test my material out at these events, but you shouldn't disrespect them like that, actually. Every event, whether it's 10 people in, the local Rotary Club or a massive 1,000 person corporate event where you've been paid thousands of dollars, should be given the same amount of respect, because they are still relying on you for your insights and your expertise. And yes, the more talks you say yes to, the better you will become, just like any apprentice, I suppose.
Yeah. And just in terms of trying to get the best out of your speaking, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the worst things I've ever done was in the really early days was to learn a half-hour presentation by rote. I mean, it was the worst thing I've ever done. Yet you do hear people, they write out their script and they learn it. It takes a day longer to learn a script. Half an hour is a long time. And the problem I find when I did that, and I only ever did it once, is that if you forget one or two sentences, you're gone.
That's exactly right. And look, the number one thing that people want from any speaker on any stage is authenticity. And when you are reading a script from your mind, it's not authentic, because you're not a professional actor. You're not going to be putting all of the context and the subtext into your words. So you are robotically blurting out what you have learned, and what you're doing as well is thinking a few steps ahead to make sure that you haven't forgotten something. So you do become quite robotic. So what you should be, that's why PowerPoint, people don't love PowerPoint, and I don't love PowerPoint bullet points, but certainly using a PowerPoint slide presentation as an anchor with graphics and photographs and imagery and one big word or phrase on your slides, which are used as your sort of little discussion points. Those are your prompts, and that's all you need. You have to still remember, you are the expert in your area of expertise. You have earned the right to be there. You're not getting put on a stage to speak about something that is the person next to you's expert area. You are the expert already. So you already should trust your gut. And when you're creating a keynote presentation, it really should be only 3 things that you write down. The 3 main points you're going to talk about in that 10, 20, or 40 minutes, the 3 main points, and underneath each one of those, what 3 sub-points will you discuss? And that is how you write a keynote on a page, which I have actually done on a plane, say between Melbourne and Sydney, when we used to go on planes. For an hour and a half. I could write a presentation in an hour and a half on one page by doing it that way. Then go start on the PowerPoint and create the graphics that back up those points, because you could riff on all those bullet points with no problem, because you are the expert.
And that's 3 main headings and 3 subheadings under each one of those, and to let that flow. And
that's what I think.
What about people having little, not cue cards, but those little systems cards in their hand to refer to them? Is that acceptable, or is it's not seen to to be professional?
Absolutely acceptable. It is, because if that's what you need as a person to get your talk done and to be the best version of you on stage, then it's acceptable. That's what deems it to be acceptable. Have a look at Samar, who's coming on next after me. Samar has a really cool printout of the notes pages of his slides, which gives him a little thumbnail of each slide, and he's written maybe 1 or 2 words in analog version with a pen and on his piece of paper that he writes right up to the very last minute before he goes on stage, because he's taking into account the current news, what's happened today and yesterday, the current vibe at this conference, what the last couple of speakers said, what he's chatted to about people to people in the audience about. So he writes a couple of notes next to those little thumbnails, and he refers to it every sort of 6 or 7 minutes, so that he can make his talk more dynamic. So anything is acceptable as long as you are not reading printed words typed out like a script.
Or PowerPoint bullet points. That's a big no-no.
Yes.
Don't do that. Don't be that person.
No bullet points allowed.
Samar, as you're talking about, will be Steve Sammartino, one of Australia's leading futurists and keynote speakers, coming up shortly. I just wanted to take back before about having some notes. this is not what we're talking about, being on the stage and presenting a keynote or you know, telling your story or getting your message out there. But this is not a speech where you sit behind the lectern and you read the speech. That's obviously a different thing.
Look, it is, but I still don't go for standing behind a lectern and reading a speech either, you know, like politicians do, that someone else has written the speech and they haven't even looked at it, the person who's actually presenting the speech, delivering the speech, and the first time they ever look at it is while they're reading it. I mean, that is not authentic. And so if you are going to be standing at a lectern and reading from a page, it should be on the bullet points only, not the ones up on the screen, but they should be prompts, not a script.
Yep. And just one last question, Yvonne. Do you, like for entrepreneurs that, you know, get the bug and they're out there speaking and maybe it's at the start to build their business, their profile, their personal brand and that path, but some entrepreneurs and business owners, they actually become really good at it and they want to make it a little bit more of maybe a sideline gig where they actually get paid. Do you actually need a speaking agent to get gigs these days?
No, you certainly don't. There's a couple of ways to get gigs, to get more speaking engagements. One is to use Google Alerts. So Google Alerts is something I've used ever since I first discovered it, maybe 10 or more years, that look up speakers who are similar to you, speakers who you would like the gigs that they are getting, or you would be a good complement to the gigs that they're getting, and set up a Google alert so that you find out which conference programs they are being put on as soon as those programs are published online. Now, you might have certainly missed the chance to put your hat in the ring for that conference this year, but now you've got an idea of which conferences you should be pitching for next year, because they're usually annual conferences. So that works really, really well for me and always has. As far as wanting to speak at events that, you know, say you're a regular at a certain event and you think, gee, I really should be up on that stage, then what you should be doing is attending that event regularly, interacting in the groups and any other sort of activity where you can show your expertise to the organizer, and then create a video, just a piece to camera video where you are demonstrating your chutzpah, I suppose you could say, and pitch yourself on video to that conference organizer, and you can absolutely bet you'll get their attention because they love anything that's a little bit different like that. Now, as far as agents and bureaus go, just forget about a speaking agent and forget about the speakers' bureaus when you're starting out. As soon as it's relevant for you to be using them as a distribution channel, they will tap you on the shoulder. Okay. You will not have to go and find them.
They will find it. Inbound marketing. They will come to you.
Yeah.
Build it and they will come. Terrific stuff.
Yes.
Great practical tips there. And hopefully there's some viewers out there who have been wanting to take that next step about getting up on the stage and getting their message out there, their story and their message. And there's no more powerful way, I don't believe, than from a stage in a speaking gig. Thank you, Yvonne. Where can people find you? What about the speaking school?
Yeah, so if you find me on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, just Yvonne Adele, Yvonne with a Y, I will post the links in just a moment for you.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, we'll be back in a tick with Steve Sammartino, as I said, one of Australia's leading futurists and a media commentator and best-selling author.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more. From Ticker, this is Brand Builders with Trevor Young.
Welcome back to Brand Builders here on Ticker. Now, Steve Sammartino is a leading futurist, author, media commentator and speaker, having presented to over 200,000 people around the globe. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, Trevor, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Now, Steve, I need to go through a few things because you have a very diverse background. But it all makes sense in the end. So some of your projects have earned over 20 million plays on YouTube. You've sent a Lego space shuttle into space. Yes, you heard that right. You've created a car that runs on air. you've made and sold startups. You've done your time in the corporate world, like many people, and you're now an author and a speaker.
Yeah, so a bit of a renaissance man, I guess. And it's funny. It's the sum of the parts is what put it all together. And it was weird because I kept doing these projects that were futuristic, and people started calling me a futurist, so I just went with it.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that, because how do you, with so many elements to your, you have worked in the corporate world. I think, if I recall, was CUB one of them, and in a marketing role. You've been in ad agencies, so you've done that side of things. You have done the startups. So with such an eclectic background, did it just fall into place, this the whole futurist thing, or had you thought about it and were struggling with, how do I want to position myself?
You've hit the nail on the head, because unless people know what you stand for as a brand, it is really, really hard to do anything. And for the longest time, I struggled. I couldn't put a word around what I had done, because I really prided myself on being a renaissance man, right? So, I worked in corporate, I studied economics. I had my first startup actually at the age of 12, which was an organic egg farm. I had a clothing company, then I did a web startup. And so I was putting all these pieces together. And what I really loved doing was mashing up new technology and seeing how that would change the business landscape. And so I tried so many different things, and it just gave me this breadth of understanding that people started inviting me, look, Steve, can you come in and share a few ideas in our company about this future thing here and that project you've done, and how are all these pieces coming together? I didn't know what I was. People told me what I was. I had no idea. I was like this jigsaw puzzle. And it took 15 years until I saw this collage of my face, and I was like, yeah, you know what I do? I look into the future. And people started telling me, oh, we're going to get that futurist, Steve Sammartino. I'm like, futurist? What? And so they told me what I was, and it took me a long time. And it wasn't until, we're talking brand builders here, it wasn't until people gave me that name and that title that people started really coming to me, and my career really took off on a real strong growth trajectory. That was when the media started happening. That's when the books started happening. It wasn't until all of that came together. So sometimes it's funny that you don't know what you're doing until someone else tells you. You've really got to listen to the audience, because you know what? They know more about you than you know about yourself. And then when you can see that, then it comes together. So people started calling me a futurist, and that's when it all took off. But I didn't know for the longest time. I was just putting together all these pieces, and it turned out that they were someone who really enjoys projecting the future, looking at technology, business models, behaviour, and all of those things.
But you had to do, for that to happen, you have to be out there in public, don't you? You have to be, on social media, having an opinion, and you've been blogging. When did you first start blogging, and how many blog posts have you probably done now? You were doing almost a daily for a while.
Yeah, I did it every day for more than 3 years. And I started in 2004. Actually, it was more than 3 years, about 6 years. I started in 2004. I've written more than 3 million words on my blog. Actually, since COVID, I've written more than 20,000 words, because I have all these ideas that just pop into my head, and I want to publish them. I really love just getting my thoughts out there when social media first arrived, because we have these dinner table conversations. People old enough listening to this remember having those pub conversations, and you talk to someone, and we'd all have these crazy ideas. And for the first time in history, our opinions could be heard in a world where it was like there was 5 people on TV and it was just their opinion. So, you know what? I mean, it just comes down to being explorative. If you're an entrepreneur, you're prepared to explore your life, you're prepared to explore and experiment with the tools. And if you do that, then that's when everything can change for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's certainly very counterintuitive, where a lot of the personal branding wisdom is to sharpen down to one thing, and I guess your one thing is that futurist. But really, to get around to it, you've had to experiment and almost play it out in public. Was there any one thing that was really a catalyst, given that you've had a number of things now, and I guess the speaking in the books is a byproduct of the brand that you've built? What about the car? Now, there was 2 things with Lego. One was can you walk us through the 2 little the 2 Lego projects?
Okay. I mean, it was funny. I had this stranger reach out to me on the internet. And he said, "Hi, I'm building a spaceship. Do you want to be friends on LinkedIn?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I mean, how often do you get an email that says, in the title, "building a spaceship"? You want someone to answer your email, just put "spaceship" in the title. I'm like, accept. I'm in. Let's hear what this guy's got. And then I get on the phone to him. It's a kid from Romania. He goes, "I've been reading your blog. You look rich. Can you send me $20,000 for an experimental project?" I'm like, "Sure. Let's send a stranger money on the internet. That's never not worked out. Let's go with that." So I did that, and I became mates with him. We did this little, it was an air balloon project where we put it into actual space Earth orbit where it was carrying a little space shuttle. If you just put Lego Space Shuttle into YouTube, you'll see it. And then after that, he said, "Why don't we go and do a big Lego project?" And that's where we built the full-size drivable Lego car. And that was just a massive experimentation project. It was so experimental. First of all, we crowdfunded it because it was too weird for the crowdfunding websites. So we got 40 people on Twitter to give $500 each, and it was like we raised $20K to buy the Lego and do it. Ended up costing me another $60,000 or something. I hope my wife never hears this; she'll kill me. But we ended up doing this project. It took us, I thought it'd be 3 months. It took 18 months, and then we drove it, and the engine was made of Lego. The engine ran on air. We put it up on YouTube, went viral, had 10 million hits on YouTube, 100 million hits for all the people who stole my footage. Thank you, internet. I know that's what you're for, stealing things. That's what it's all about. And it just went crazy. And actually, the phone rang a lot. That's when people started saying, "How did you do that? What are the tools you're using? How is the world changing?" And that's when I did my first book. And it was funny. You're right, Trevor. That crazy project, doing something weird and wonderful with no real, there was no business objective. It was the objective was, just because, like, why not? That was the reason. But it turns out that all the things that we do in our private life, if we have the sentience of mind, we can pull them into little paces and they weave a little pattern of where business is going, because things happen with humanity first before they happen in business. Yeah, and if you can weave a pattern together and tell your story and your brand, people realize what you stand for, and then they'll pull towards you.
Yeah, humanity first, business second. And I'm, as you said, I'm tipping you didn't go into building a Lego car with an ROI in mind, but really, the ROI has been huge.
Exactly. Well, the ROI it actually was huge. I mean, I wasn't building it to drive the kids to school in it, but I just did it to do it. And I often think that in the spreadsheet era of society, it's like, does everything add up? Are the numbers there? We're really missing something. I mean, if it was that everything had to have a timeline and a budget, humanity would still be living in caves, right? Two important things. You've got to go over budget and over time and do something crazy. You do that, and then you're going to see the seeds of greatness. You're going to see an emerging pattern. I mean, the social web that we all take for granted today was crazy people doing, online chat forums. Who's chatting onto the internet? It's people with neck beards, just weird, and now look, right, it's everyone's life. So the fringe dwellers are the people who invent tomorrow's front line. And, get on the fringe. Get on the fringe.
Sammer, you now get every time I turn on the radio or open up something, open up a newspaper, you're there being covered. You're probably not opening up the newspaper, maybe getting on news.com.au or something like that. You're there. You're a omnipresent media commentator, but you're also a professional speaker, and you're speaking all around the world. Probably not currently, but you've got a number of years in the bank doing gigs virtually every week. Plus, you've had 2 best-selling books. Those 3 books, media coverage, and speaking. What comes first? What kicked off everything, or they all work in tandem? There's a bit of synchronicity there. Have you stopped and looked at that side of things?
There was a bit of synchronicity. For me, I was doing speaking a lot, but not professionally. People say, "I want to become a professional speaker. How do you do it?" And get your brand and your ideas out there. I did it for free for 10 years. I didn't even know you could get paid for it. I remember I did a gig one day, and an agent came up to me and said, "How much do you charge?" I said, "How much do I charge? Hello, welcome to my life. What are you talking about?" I've been giving this gift for 10 years. And I used to do that to promote my startup. I had an early sharing economy startup called rentoid.com, and I would go to the startup functions because it's a cheap and easy way to promote your business. Offer your services, your ideas to other people in the same world as you, and then you get invited in. So I was doing that for 10 years. And then the book really gives you a reason to get picked. Now, while it's important that you've got to be good at speaking to get invited back, the hardest thing with speaking is actually giving someone who's going to pay for you a reason to pick you, right? There's got to be a reason. They need to justify you to the person with the budget. Oh, here's this guy, he's a best-selling author and he's done this viral stuff and had the Lego car and he's on media. That's where it happens. And also what's interesting is that everyone thinks, oh, I want to get on mainstream TV or on the biggest media property out there. Here's the thing. You've got to do your yards and your hard work in those basic times before you go big, because that's when you'll learn it, and that's where big media look to get new ideas and new talent. So it's this beautiful fit. You just got to do it at the most provincial level. I'm not afraid to go down there and speak at a local business person's club with 5 people around a card table. If you can add some value, that value will be recognised, and then you build up. So for me, it was a whole lot of things just all came together. Yeah. But you need to have a reason to get picked, and sometimes having a product that people like and revere, or a project that you've done, is a good reason. And then when you get into the paid area, the most important thing before knowing how well you can speak is they've got to have a reason to justify to pay you. So if you're an author or you've done a project or had a startup, all of a sudden they can justify you. So that's where that happens.
So what just sort of summarising all that, Sammer, what would be some of the sort of tips for people just to do their thing, to believe in who they are and to follow that course a little bit?
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say the first thing is publish your thoughts, right? You've got to think live. You've got to think out on the web, right? And you've got to be able to take the scars and take the hits. I get trolled a lot. I'm a little bit left-leaning and future the technology for humanity rather than technology for big tech. You've got to have an opinion, put it out there, and then shape what you become, sharpen the saw as you are moving forward. You've got to learn live. You've got to publish and learn as you publish. So I would say publish as much as you can, put your thoughts out there, but more important, stand for something. Have an opinion. Something for everyone is something for no one. Know what you believe in and put your beliefs out there. And we can see this even in the extreme right-wing media and extreme left-wing. The reason they get so much coverage is because they stand for something. And even though we might abhor how they behave, there is absolutely a big important lesson in that. You've got to stand for what you stand for, and then it becomes easier for people to see what your brand is.
I like that. And I like sharpen the sword as you go along. You hone your point of view. You won't just one day wake up and it's there. You're going to have to sharpen it over time. And blogging is a terrific way to do that. And then also connecting with people on social media, the various social channels, Twitter being a really good one. I know you're very active there. Speaking of which, how can people connect with you, Steve? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, so stevesammartino.com. You should totally sign up to my email list. I put out a crazy thought once a week on something that's going to blow your mind, so do that. But say good day on Twitter, @Sammartino, my last name, on Twitter. You can find me there and find me at my website, and you can find me on LinkedIn. So stevesammartino.com, and all my links and where you can find me are on there.
Terrific. Thanks very much for your time, Steve. Much appreciated.
Love it, Trevor. Cheers, brother.
Okay. All right, that was an action-packed show. I said at the outset we were talking about social media and CEOs and getting out there and creating content and having a bit of fun and being part of it. I've just been reading this book in recent weeks, The Social CEO, put together by Damian Corbet from the UK. And a lot of the chapters and a lot of the contributors are experts in their space, but they're also CEOs as well who are on social and talk about the benefits. So that's The Social CEO. I do recommend that as a book to read. Alrighty, you've been watching Brand Builders. My name is Trevor Young. Fantastic that you've run the whole show with us today, and we look forward to catching up again at 9 a.m. next Wednesday.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more.
Drop into Ticker